Words of Phil Dave. It's Friday. I never know what that means. It's all the same to me, to be honest with you. And my least favorite day of the week is Sunday. Hate Sundays. Hate them. They make me so depressed. Anywho, I'm Russ Kane. Welcome to the Daily Show. This is men's radio station. Removing the stigma surrounding mental health. That was the idea. Anyway, time to introduce, you know him. Oh, hang on, 133 million on Euro Millions tonight on the lottery. 100, and what would you do with 133 million? Good afternoon to you, Sen Munro. Good afternoon, everybody all over the world. You know him. You love him. Neil Long.
Greetings and good morning. Ready to do some afternoon to do some more destigmatization.
We're going to do that. Look at this. Tell me something. This doesn't make sense to me. This is from Groupon. Russian eyelash extensions. What is the one thing you wouldn't be doing right now, considering what's going on in the world?
Looking for discounts on Russian eyelash extensions.
Yeah, I mean,
do you offer Russian eyelash extensions at all?
No, I wouldn't want them. So let's just say hello to a few folks. We got Sen Munro. Good afternoon to you. And of course, Robert Van Buren.
International dance music DJ.
That's the one. I don't even know what that means. And then let's dash up to Scotland, to Fife, and we'll say hello to Susie. Hi, everybody. Hope you have a good weekend. Possibly so. I never know. The jury is always out on that one. And from Fife in Scotland, we go to Edinburgh in Scotland and say hello to Veronica. Good afternoon. Veronica, it's freezing cold. I have to go out for a meeting that's been postponed for about 2+ years, finally. And I'm going to be wearing like sweaters and everything. It's freezing.
It's bright. It is bright. I'll give you that. But it is a little chilly.
Really dull here. I mean, is it bright where you are? But you're in Vegas, bright, yeah. You're in Las Vegas, aren't you? Just by the MGM?
Who, me?
Yeah, you're in Vegas, aren't
you? Yes.
That's where you live these days?
Well, yes. Well,
I'm amazed you get up this time in the morning. Speaking of America, let's say hello to Elizabeth Green, who's watching in New York City. So good, Elizabeth, they just named it. And then from New York City, we go to New York State. Isn't this fun? Be honest, this is amazing. A little radio station. We got New York State. Sun is out, says Elizabeth Green. And good day, my friend. Where's he gone? Come back. Good day, my friends. He doesn't talk like that at all, but he does for the purposes of the show. I don't get this. This is Fife in Scotland. It's T-shirt weather here. I'm putting on like a really thick kind of lumberjack shirt later. God damn. Good afternoon, you too. That's Facebook user. You'll be watching us on the Espresso Bar. Hello, if you're a member of the Espresso Bar. Are you a member of the Espresso Bar? Neil Long in Las Vegas. You must join. Join my Espresso Bar, please.
I would love to.
Oh, now what do we got? It's free, by the way. Veronica Cotton, it's lovely here. I've just been for a walk with Harley. We met a guy on a Harley Davidson photo on my page. It's a lot of Harleys in one sentence.
Indeed.
Does your Harley, Veronica, have a soft tail? See what I did there? It's a motorbike gag. You see? Soft. If only Neil Fox was here, he could talk about it for the next 5 hours.
Indeed he could.
And Linda Dave, good afternoon. Linda, I really appreciate
you. I live and breathe.
Well, Linda Dave, your boy. I'm going to send you a private message, but your boy's working his socks off. Really under pressure there, really under pressure producing these shows, and he has got all the Grand Fromages watching over his shoulder. It's not the sort of pressure I would enjoy anymore. I really wouldn't. There's a lot riding on his shoulders, and he is the man for the job, but boy, he's got to be on his toes. Linda, you should be very proud of what Phil's doing, what he's achieved. And that's that's Barry J. Allen. Be with you in a minute, Mr. Carhill. And then we've got one more, the lovely Emma Webb. Afternoon,
Russ Neil. Well, I was wondering where you were.
I know you were. Should we bring on our first guest?
Thank you.
Is this, by the way, that's like magic. You're like David Blaine. You just think of a cup of tea or coffee and it just emerges.
I was reading books about manifesting. It really works.
Wow. Let's bring on our first guest because we've got a packed show today. Hello, John.
Hello. I was going to say good morning, but it's not morning, is it?
Well, it feels.
I know.
Like
I've done
morning.
that twice on the show already, so don't worry.
How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. That's about.
I always call it morning, especially for everybody watching in America. It's really early in the morning, so I'm happy with morning because otherwise I feel my day's gone. To be honest with you, now I could not say no to you, John Cahill, coming onto the show because of what you do. Tell us all about it.
So I work for the animal charity, the Blue Cross. I'm currently the manager of the Sheffield Rehoming Advice and Behaviour Unit.
A little bit more?
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
More because
I'm here to talk about our food bank initiative.
I want to hear all about it because I'm dog nuts I'm just nuts, but Ebony, the mini schnauzer, I've said this so many times, and I know so many of our viewers and listeners all over the world agree that our pets have kept us sane during this horrible 2+ years, which has just really driven, I think, everybody to the edge of distraction.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with that.
So we've now got food banks for dogs. And the moment this was proposed to me, I said, get him on.
Yeah, so towards the sort of the back end of the first main lockdown, we noticed in the Sheffield area, a lot of the clients that were trying to rehome animals, and that be cats, dogs, small furry animals, rabbits, rodents, things like that. It was through financial reasons or changes of circumstances that were financial related. And in a few instances, we donated a little bit of food off our own shelves to sort of help these people through a little time of hardship. Okay. So we sat and we came up with the idea of, well, what about a pet food bank? We know the human food banks are everywhere. What about a pet one? Yep. So we flagged the idea around. We got the go ahead to pilot it in Sheffield. So we started it in January 2021. A little bit difficult to get it off the ground to start with because of the COVID regulations and things like that. But as we started to open up to the world, it's gone from strength to strength. We've now got 3 pet food banks through Blue Cross. There's ourselves in Sheffield, our sister centre over in Manchester has one, and then the Grimsby Hospital has one, and then our Newport centre down in South Wales, that's setting one up as we speak. Wow. So far we've donated over 1.5 tons of sort of biscuit food, dry food as we call it.
Get you.
And we're up to about 2,000 days worth of cat and dog meat at the minute. Comparing the numbers this year to last year, there's a dramatic increase this year, and we think it's down to the cost of living crisis that we're all going through and things like that.
John, it hasn't even started, my friend. It hasn't even warmed up. That's my fear. Yeah. I got a few questions for you.
Of course,
I know Neil will have his usual. Neil is the expert on question. It's a gag between Neil and I running back the last 30 years. Is this first of all, how come you've got the nicest approach to any mainline station in Britain apart from Paddington, Sheffield?
I think I've only been on that train about twice.
It's fantastic.
It's lovely, isn't it?
I spent quite a bit of time up in Sheffield, and I thought I had no idea what it's like, and I had this sort of typical Londoner's view, and I got there and I absolutely loved the place. People were great. Everything about it was great. Loved it.
Everyone always describes it as a big city that feels like a village. That's how they describe it.
I couldn't sum it up better. It's so interesting. We have, I'm looking at all the messages. Like Asa Don Brown's watching from New York State. New York State's probably bigger than most of Britain. I mean, America's so huge, and we're a tiny country, and yet from London to Sheffield, it might as well be Jupiter.
Oh yeah, different planets.
You get there, you go, what a cool place. It really is. Now, one of the things which has bugged me, and we've talked about this a lot on the Daily Show, what the hell was going on with people who thought, I know, I'll get a pet, I'll get a dog because it's locked down, not thinking it through. What's going on with these?
I don't know. Is the truthful answer to that one? We have seen an increase in pet occupancy during the lockdowns, and I think there's a lot of animals being sold on the internet. Sold on your gum trees and your Facebooks and all that sort of thing, which we do sort of actively advise against because you just don't know any history on the animal. It's encouraging puppy farming, that sort of thing.
Disgusting.
And that there's animals in rescue wanting help. So we've had a few instances where people have bought pets during lockdown. They've gone back to work or their circumstances have changed and they've had to rehome the pet, but not too much. Luckily, we've not had that much of that in Sheffield. So
it's can I talk about puppy farm? I know it's not why you're not here, but You talk about the food banks, and we'll get back to that in a second. We took on a little mini schnauzer, not my main one, who'd been in a puppy farm in a cage for 5 years, and we tried everything for a year, and she was so badly mentally damaged. We had to give her back to the charity. It was impossible. She never assimilated into. It broke my heart.
This is the thought that was in my head. Animals obviously have mental illness or mental health as well, on a spectrum in varying degrees, don't they? And it's fascinating. Maybe something that people wouldn't think about normally, but they do, just the same as human beings do.
Yeah, it's one thing Blue Cross has. We have our own separate behaviour service. So we've got several. We've got actually one on site today. She's helping us today, and we've got some animal behaviourists that work for Blue Cross, and I know their calls recently have gone through the roof to their behaviour line that we operate with lots of different behavioural issues. Puppy farming's come into it a couple of times. Just animals that maybe have been around their owners too much during lockdown, and they're struggling now that the owners aren't there.
Yeah.
So they just need a bit.
Could we look
it's
at
not
that?
a case of rehoming the pet. It's just a bit more advice to sort of.
Could we look at that for a second? Because I have a friend who's got a dog, and during lockdown, obviously, it was velcroed to them. And now that person's going back to work, the dog is suddenly barking. Never used to bark, and suddenly barks at everything. That presumably is down to
separation anxiety, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, or it could be. Yeah, it's
so weird.
It's strange how much they depend on you when you're not there. It's my dog at home. He's a rescue dog, and he was when we first got him from the kennel. It took us a long time to sort of settle him into the house.
Whatever did they do before human beings domesticated them? I suppose ran in packs so that
Yeah.
company.
They ran their own crofts. They organised crofts all by themselves.
They're intelligent animals, Russ. It doesn't surprise me.
Of course, they got their own advertising deals, everything. That's
amazing.
Amazing what they did. Right, the food banks. Do people what's the mechanics?
That's a lovely idea.
John?
So basically, we've advertised it locally. It's on posters, social media, the usual channels and local vets, things like that. And basically, people are in need. We just do what we can. We try not to be judgmental about anything. We don't really go into massive details about why. I'm not trained in saying whether someone needs help or they don't or anything like that. So we don't record many details. All we want to know is what your pet is, any particular special needs, and how we can help. We're trying to take away that stigma of asking for help. We don't want people to feel judged or feel
that one.
You see how strange, because when we set this up a few years ago, one of the strap lines was removing the stigma surrounding mental health.
That's exactly,
and that's so lovely that you're doing that.
That's one of the reasons we're trying to do the food bank, because it enables pets that perhaps would have come up for rehoming that don't need to be. They're perfectly happy where they are. They're well looked after. They're well cared for, well loved. And that mental health thing is a big part of that. Having your pet there, I don't know what I'd do without my two little dogs.
Nor me.
They're my world, probably more than my kids at times.
They're going to be more loyal.
Yeah, exactly. It enables us to keep those pets in the home, ultimately, and that keeps that family together. And
because animals are a part of the family. You use the word family. And, when a pet has died, it really does feel like losing a family member. I found a dog. He was just running down the A3, and I stopped my car and put him in the car and just tried to do the right thing and find his owner. But it turned out his owner had died. Therefore, he was homeless. So we took him on. He was a Chow Alsatian cross, gorgeous creature. And I was mortified when he died. Mortified. But you're right. They do become like family members.
In the end?
Absolutely.
What happened, Neil? What happened in the end to the dog?
He died.
Oh.
We had him for 2 years. He was quite an old dog.
That's a sad story. I wish I hadn't asked now.
It was a very happy 2 years.
Dave's always, 2 years more than he would have had of happiness. Dave Sleet up in Fife, because I know he's back up there at the moment. Blue Cross are amazing. This is for you, John. Thank you for the whole organisation. Canine and equine psychology is very closely linked with the psychological environment. They're connected to us. Dave Sleet runs a company.
I agree. Sometimes dogs, but if their owner's fractious, the dog becomes fractious. They kind of take the lead from us, don't they?
I always use the phrase, it travels down the lead.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
We're going to beat that phrase this week. That's the phrase of the week. That's the phrase of the week. Paul Claridge says, who's probably being beaten up in East Croydon if he's not recovered from COVID yet. I've listened to so many reports lately talking about animal shelters now being overrun by dogs, bought during lockdown by idiots. I'm saying by idiots, Paul's not. And now the owners are going back to work, etc., are struggling to pay bills. I have great sympathy about them struggling to pay bills. I have pretty little sympathy.
It's one of the reasons we set the bank up.
And I think people follow trends as well, don't they, John? Because ever since comparing the meerkat with Sergey, meerkats have suddenly been bought and sold online. I know a guy that's a patron of he runs this wildlife foundation. It drives him mad. It makes him absolutely furious. I mean, do you find a lot of that? Just people buying things on a whim and irresponsibly?
What the hell is a meerkat at home? What's the point of that? Doesn't come to the door and say, hello. Does he worry about your insurance?
You do see trends.
The meerkat.
You do see trends with animals, particularly dogs. So the current trend is more what we call a brachycephalic breed, your flat-faced breeds.
I was just thinking that. I was wondering if it was the flat-face thing.
Yeah,
I don't get that at all.
It's a campaign
we've bad for them, isn't it? I mean, that's bred in.
Yeah,
that's bad for them. It affects them.
It causes serious respiratory issues, doesn't it? And they have to have quite substantial surgery.
I mean, they look cute, but they're always panting. They clearly have breathing problems, and it seems to me so unfair to deliberately breed a dog because you think, oh, that's cute. The damn thing can't breathe. I think it should.
And to rectify that is quite substantial surgery as well. Which then, if you can't afford that surgery, then you're going down the animal welfare route as well. But yeah, so the brachycephalic breeds,
cockapoos,
some of the designer names that are now coming out the woodwork, things like that. But yeah, you do see fashion trends with dogs, and that trend will be
even
different.
Things like cockapoos, because that seems fairly benign to me.
Yeah, we've had a couple of cockapoos come through.
They're great. I love them. They're adorable.
Yeah, they're nice little things.
Oh, sweet.
But yeah, you sort of go through trends. Sometimes it'll be all French bulldogs, and it might be all Chihuahuas, and it's just staffies. Obviously, most welfare units are full of staffies.
They had a bad rap for a while, didn't they? But
I've
never met a bad staffy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, my lad's fantastic. Wouldn't be out him.
Have you got a staffy?
Yeah, I've got a staffy cross Dalmatian. He's a strange-looking little creature.
But staffy cross Dalmatian, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, he's a strange-looking.
Can we get him on camera?
He's not here. I'm in my office, so
not allowed dogs.
He looks like a spotty staffy, basically.
I'm just kidding. So. Tell me something. Let me ask you this, because you're the expert. I've always thought there's no such thing as a bad dog. There's just a bad owner. So when you see staffies that look like they're going to rip your throat out, you think, well, they've learnt that behaviour.
Well, it's travelling down the lead, isn't it?
I love that.
A lot of behaviour is learned. And sometimes it's not a bad owner. It's maybe an inexperienced owner or an owner that needs advice on a particular breed, because there are breeds out there that are quite difficult to handle if you don't know what they are.
Akitas.
Akitas is a fantastic example. Yeah, they if you know what you're doing, they're fantastic animals. But untrained or unsocialized properly, they can be a problem. So you have to know when you're getting a dog, you have to know what you're getting. You do your research first, and then decide if your environment's right for that, or if you're right for that pet. Can you provide the amount of exercise it needs? Can you provide the stimulation it needs?
Exactly.
The environment it needs.
Not all dogs are the same, and I think people think it's just all the same. When the novelty's worn off, then the work kicks in, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to ask you about fundraising in a minute. Do you want me to read that one out from Liz, Russ?
Oh, yeah. Read that out from Liz Saul, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, sure. Liz Saul, all the pets I had either found or we took them in because of previous humans' changing circumstances. They were cats, but so affectionate and loved snuggling up and chatting to us. I haven't any right now, as I'm not home enough. It wouldn't be fair on the animal. I still miss my last one, Thomas.
Oh, bless. Here we go. Here's a question for you, John. Sue Sleet up in Fife. Why do we now give mixed breed dogs, which used to be called mutts, fancy names? When I was younger, they were simply mongrels.
Because, Sue, we like to market everything nowadays. I know a guy that does social media, and he can make having your gutters clean look sexy, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know where the labels have come from, but it's a very modern thing.
It's strange. Now, in your experience, John, do you find a lot of people think, I know, I'm going to get a dog. I live in a studio flat, but I think I'll get a bull mastiff because that seems like a really good idea. Why don't I get an Alsatian or a husky? What are these people thinking?
I think it's just maybe a lack of awareness of what the breed requires. So one of the things we do here,
like saying I don't understand gravity. That if I drop a biscuit, it's going to fall on the floor. It's not going to float. I don't.
Yeah,
it bewilders me, John. I just don't understand.
It's one of the things we do during the rehoming process. That's probably the most important thing: is where the animal's going to be going to. Making sure it's the right environment.
Support dogs.
Say again, sorry.
Emotional support dog.
I'm just reading the screen.
She's
emotional
in saying,
support dogs. Goodness me.
Here in New York, everyone has a dog. They're allowed everywhere emotional support. Yes, that's a load of American BS, to be honest with you. I think people totally take the piss with that. And Elizabeth's coming back and say, live in a building, see big dogs coming in and out. It's a shocker. It's ridiculous.
So it's
so selfish.
You must have a big fundraising drive going on all the time. Is it relatively easy to get money in at the moment?
No, to be honest. It's obviously everyone's counting the pennies at the minute. We're all tightening our belts. So we've got our fundraising teams are working really hard, but we rely solely on donations. We're not government funded in any way.
No, so and what kind of fundraising activities do you do?
All sorts. We've got our Blue Cross month coming up in June, and it's our 125th anniversary this year. Hence, we all got little badges on. So we usually have Blue Cross week once a year, where each centre goes on a massive fundraising drive. But what we're doing this year is we're doing Blue Cross month. So for Sheffield, we've got numerous events planned. I'm doing a virtual bike ride that takes up the space between all the centres in the UK, which is just shy of 2,000 miles.
I love it's a virtual bike.
I'm actually riding it, but I'm doing it on a static bike. And then we're doing a sleep out sort of homeless night for the strays and things like that. So we're going to set the cardboards up in the car park and sleep out overnight. We've got the usual sort of tea drives, bake sales, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's some cracking events going off around the country during June. So keep your eyes out; they're all over the place.
Well, I think it's one of those things that would be very dear to people's hearts, but low priority in the sense of government funding for obvious reasons. But probably people would probably prefer government funding to go to this than some human beings, to be honest with you. I never said that. But
I stay out of all that stuff. So
do you know, John, this is a terrible thing. I've said this before, and I try to be absolutely honest. Be with you in a minute, Matt. I try to always be honest about this, in that when I see somebody homeless on the street and they've got a dog, I know this is awful, so I'm probably going straight to hell anyway, so that doesn't really matter. I feel so sorry for the dog, and I walk up the street worrying about the dog, and then I say, Russell, there's a human being attached to the dog, and I'm going, yeah, but it's a dog, and that's how my mind works.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's
to
not.
be honest, some of the dogs that live with the homeless people are some of the best looked after dogs you'll find.
So I hear. Paul Clarence.
There's a lot of good charities out there doing a lot of veterinary work with them and things like that, and yeah, they're some of the best looked after dogs you'll find.
They are. And when people say, well, why have they got a dog? If they can afford a dog, they can. No, come on. Come on. If everything else is absolutely turned to shit in their life, shouldn't they at least have the companionship of a dog? Come on, let's be human about this. Now, Paul is saying this from East Croydon. I hope you're feeling better, by the way, Paul. You got COVID on top of
Paul.
Don't encourage him, Neil. Don't. He's a pain in the ass. Heard Ian hit from Blue Cross, blah, 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 blah. Is it correct at the moment that the Blue Cross food banks are not in London?
Not at present, no.
Pourquoi?
The only branches we have in London at the minute are our hospitals. And to be honest, I couldn't tell you what state they're at, whether they're going to be opening a food bank or not. Because obviously the clinical side takes priority to those guys. But no, at present, we started off in Sheffield, then the Manchester one opened, then the Grimsby, Newport's opening next. So we're just working where it's needed. And then, if there's a need proved to be in London, hopefully the guys down there will be able to do something.
So if people want to get hold of you, because I can see our next guest is in the digital green room quaffing the champagne in a way that is quite disturbing. If people want to get hold of you or support the Blue Cross, what do they do? Give us some.
Yeah, all the contact details for us are on the Blue Cross website at bluecross.org.uk, and it'll break down to each individual centre. For the food banks themselves, we accept donations in person, through our Amazon wish lists, through social media, any possible way you can get it to us.
John, if you hit me up on LinkedIn, I also do online fundraisers. It might be quite fun doing one for you.
I will hunt you out when I've finished in a second. I'll dig you out.
Track me down.
They could look after the running mare. It's a gap.
Don't mention the running mare.
Never mention
do a bike ride with
John, thank you so much. Good luck with your virtual bike ride.
Yeah, I might have overstretched myself on that one.
Well, you could have, but then you could just say, I'm doing a virtual sitting on my ass on the couch. That would be my fundraiser.
I never thought.
Yeah, but I don't need to do that virtually. I can do that for real.
Obviously. But I'm so stupid, I'd be doing that, but I'd be on a bike. It's too confusing, and I don't know what the hell's going on, and suddenly I'm Marcel Marceau. John, thank you so much.
Good talking to you, John.
Magic, thanks for your time, guys. See you
Thanks
later.
for looking after all the animals. You don't know how much that means to us. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Hey, Russ, I once went to a zoo, right, and there was only one dog there.
Was it a Shih Tzu? Moving on, ladies and gentlemen.
I've got to get up early to catch you out.
That's one of my favourite gags. Tell the gag.
I love that gag.
I buggered it up. Go on, tell the gag. Quickly. Go on, tell the gag.
I'll do it in the style of Tommy Cooper because it's even funnier. Okay. I went to a zoo. There was only one dog there. It was a Shih Tzu. Thank you very much.
Love that. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, looking absolutely aghast, it's Matt Jarvis who's thinking, why have I agreed to come onto this show? Hi, hello. Matt. And thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah. The sun is shining outside.
It's what? The sun
is shining outside, up north as well.
Pure grey skies, and it's freezing. Where are you? Bahamas?
In Lancashire. Sunny Lancashire.
Well, I was outside of London. I don't know. It's somewhere or other. Lancashire, lovely. Gap. Now, north of Watford Gap, so I'm completely lost. North of Scratchwood service stations and stuff. Matt, tell us all about yourself and why you are here, because we're delighted you joined us.
Yeah, so Matt Jarvis, I'm the Chief Commercial and Insurance Services Officer at Slater Gordon. So that's website slatergordon.co.uk. And here to talk about smart motorways and road safety and autonomous vehicles as well, because obviously that's something that is very much in the news at the moment.
Yeah, I have an opinion on smart motorways.
Yeah, who the hell called them smart?
Death trap is the word that springs to mind.
I think I call them death trap. Don't go on the motorways. I think they're the worst.
Yeah, well, the government obviously at the beginning of the year sort of paused the construction of them.
Yes,
there had been obviously some bad sort of publicity around the safety of the smart motorways. I think they're still sort of continuing with construction of the ones that they're currently building, but as I said, they are sort of pausing the construction of new ones pending the outcome of a review. So they're taking all the data and the analytics from obviously what they've learned so far. It's a very interesting one because if you look at sort of the pros of smart motorways in theory, they keep the traffic moving, they sort of create less congestion at busy times, they control the speed of the motorways, but they have created a safety hazard because if a vehicle stops.
Did we have no grown-ups actually involved in the planning process who might have thought this through, or was everybody 12?
You can look. You could say that, given that if someone's doing 70 miles an hour and then has to stop in a live lane, and other vehicles have to get out of the way, it doesn't sound great, does it? And
no,
they put what was obviously we had a hard shoulder, which obviously you could pull into and get out of the car safely, and then obviously onto the grass verge. Whereas you're sort of in a live lane, the gaps between the two or the sort of pullover sections in some circumstances as long as sort of a mile and a half away. So if you do break down and you can't get to that sort of safety net, you're having to stop your car, you're having to get out your car very quickly in what is a very, very busy motorway, and get your family and over onto the grass verge and obviously call for help. But that vehicle remains then a hazard because there's obviously a time for when the lane becomes inactive.
Matt, I'll tell you, after we booked you on, somebody very close to me phoned up in a big panic. They'd had a blowout on the motorway heading up to the Midlands yesterday. And thank goodness it wasn't a smart motorway, because they were able, with the time, it's just shredded, to get onto the hard shoulder and call for help. And we sorted
I get the theory of it. I get the theory of it, all the positive aspects that you said. But what possessed someone to think it was a good idea to take the hard shoulder away? And another experience I had of smart motorways, I think it's where the M3 meets the M25 near where I live. So it merges, so you've got 5 lanes. So if you're going off to the left, there's 1, 2, 3 lanes, and the third one is essentially, I know it's not the right name for it, fast lane, right, or 6 lanes. And there was one point, and then you got the 3 lanes of the other motorway, which is merging into. And I was in the middle, and it went from 70 to 30. And to do that in what people might see as a fast lane, that's been dangerous as well.
Yeah,
and the cameras are there ready to jump on you if you caught speeding. Wasn't it a police officer that had lost someone, and he was very much behind doing all the campaigning to have this government review? I remember hearing it on the news.
Yeah, and there's been a number of fatalities, and obviously that's why the government has taken the stance it's taken, because there quite clearly is something they need to review. I mean, going back to the earlier point around sort of whose idea was it, and whether they were of sound mind when they made the idea. Again, we get the principles as to why it would make sense. We have a lot of congestion, or we did have a lot of congestion, sort of pre the pandemic, and that's probably eased somewhat as our changing sort of driver habits, sort of post pandemic, are now sort of coming to the fore. But there was a real sort of distinct lack of education of sort of drivers, of what you do in when on a smart motorway, and I think that sort of was a big factor, because they are very, very different. And as you alluded to, Neil, in terms of, you do have those variable speeds, you have sort of cameras attached to some of those speeds, some of those sort of speed
stealth
variables. So, you're getting people who are going quite fast, realize there's a camera and slam on. And again, that's not creating a good environment for road safety. So there are, I think the education of the driver is a key part to that, and that's something that the government does need to look at, if they do want to move forward with smart motorways in the future. But they have to take this review very seriously, because, it has created a safety hazard.
I like the positive aspects of it. It's just give us a hard shoulder, just give us back the hard shoulder, all about traffic flow. Yeah, that is pretty smart, but it just, to lose a hard shoulder.
A friend of mine is a
mile
paramedic.
Between each stopping place, it's crazy.
Yeah. Paul Claridge says, a friend of mine is a paramedic. She says the so-called smart motorways, I love that so-called, are a nightmare for them, often delaying their arrival at incidents.
Well, it would be, because they can't scoot down the hard shoulder.
Yeah, there you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Now, you also came on very briefly to talk about autonomous vehicles. This is a whole hornet's nest of.
It's a very interesting.
Because you're at Slater Gordon. We've had representatives from Slater Gordon on before. We love having you on, because you're the grand fromages of all of this sort of area. So it's great to have you with us. It's really an insurance problem, isn't it? If you delve into it, and I've watched lots of stuff and read up about it. In other words, if you've got an automated car. See if I've got this right, Matt. If I'm wrong, please tell me. And if you have an accident, well, is it Fred Smith driving the car? Is it, let's call it Tesla, it doesn't matter. Is it Tesla's fault? No. Or is it the automatic system they've put in? Is it the other person? Who the hell's liable for this? And I'm going to bring in, because I can see her looking ready and chomping at the bit, Chantal as well.
Good afternoon, Chantal.
Hi, how are you?
We're with the big boys today. We're with the big boys. So we've got I'm putting this up. This is Matt, Chief Commercial Insurance Services Officer, Slater and Gordon, whom we all know. Now, automated cars. Matt.
Well, I mean, to your point then, obviously this is something which is taking us into the future. We've sort of got, technology is really starting to advance in motor vehicles, and has done probably for the last sort of five years. And there are levels of automation within most of the vehicles that we drive now. They will stop of their own accord, or they'll prevent accidents in some way, shape, or form that way. And obviously then taking it to the next level, which is complete autonomy, which is in effect, you're putting your feet up, sitting on the driver's seat, but not doing anything, and the car is taking you from A to B. To your point around sort of who's responsible, the thought process at the moment is around the insurer would be the responsible party if there were to be an accident.
So if I've got just to drill down, say I buy a I'm saying Tesla, it could be any, it could be whatever you want, a Lucid or something. So I buy a Lucid, I've got my automatic doodad on, I have an accident, it's my fault. Is that the deal at the moment?
At the moment, well, if you're responsible for the accident, yes, it would be your fault. But in theory, in sort of autonomous vehicles which are driving themselves, the theory is that the insurance company would then have to pick up the bill for that, which we feel is an odd circumstance, because in effect the person who owns that vehicle is still taking that responsibility of taking that vehicle onto the road. Now, should they be in a position whereby they're completely moving away from any responsibility they have to other road users? You've also got this concept recently over the last few days where we have the possibility of being able now to watch movies, watch TV programs in the car as well, We've also got the concept.
Terrible idea. I'm sorry, it's a terrible idea if you're the driver. Shocking.
It's technology, isn't it? And I think there's going to be pros and cons.
Chantal, I'm going to take you off for a second. I'll tell you what. I'll explain why in a minute. It's coming through your new gadget. Give me a sec. Right. Chantal's got a fabulous new gadget, but we're hearing Matt through it, which we understand. We'll come back to Chantal in just a moment. So I like some of the very fancy cars, of course, have got the driver can only see like the sat nav or whatever, but the passengers can watch the movies or TV. I get that, but you've got to really have a fancy schmancy car for that. My car is wonderfully low tech. I have nothing on it, nothing at all, nothing.
Okay.
So 5-speed manual, no tech whatsoever. I love it. And I take responsibility for it.
Yeah, no,
I like tech, but I think the idea of driverless cars, well, what's the point? It's like having radio without DJs. Oh, hang on a minute.
Oh, whoa, wait. Well, obviously, you've never seen, oh, God, I've forgotten what it's called. I mucked up my gag. Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he goes back and he's chasing himself and he gets into the Jimmy driverless taxi thing. I think
Terminator.
No, the other one where he goes back. Can't remember. They
Total
redid
Recall?
it. Yes, thank you, Matt.
Welcome.
You were no help there at all.
No
points for Slater Gordon there. No,
I couldn't think of the movie.
It's so interesting. Just final question, because I know you're a very busy fellow. This has got to be worked out properly by folks like yourself. Do you get consulted on this? Presumably, because you're a top legal, you're one of the biggest legal firms. So do you get consulted like where you think the law should be going?
Not really, no. A lot is done by, obviously it's sort of arranged and sort of organized, primarily by the government. They're the ones who are advising, on this. It will be for us really then to sort of deal with any issues that then arise, via the concept of driverless vehicles in the future through the courts. Who is responsible? Will that be tested? Would it be the insurers? Would it be the manufacturers whom then have responsibility, or will it actually be the drivers? Or is there a sort of contribution of responsibility from one or more?
It's such a difficult one because we live in a blame culture anyway. Because I remember, just a tad. I was it wasn't my fault, honest, but I was turning right, made a completely legal right move in the actual lane to turn right, and a motorcyclist, a young chap delivering pizza, overtook me on the wrong side. And when the police came, I said, well, it's just an accident. He said, we don't call it an accident anymore. We call it a collision, because immediately they're going to be looking for responsibility. And I had to fill in that form, work out whose fault it was and all that sort of thing.
That's why I have a camera and it's always on. Always. I've had one for years and years and years. Slater Gordon, this is from Facebook user who's watching on the espresso bar. This is good news for you, Matt Jarvis.
Okay.
Slater Gordon are dealing with the class action against Mercedes for the diesel scandal. They're handling my claim for my old E-Class and C-Class. There you go. A happy punter. On that, Matt, there's so much more I could talk about, but it's not fair to keep Chantal. She's an important person, as indeed are you. Do come back and see us. It was great. There's so much.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you for making insurance interesting. I think you're the first person I've ever met to do that.
Okay. No, nice to meet you both. Have a great
weekend. Nice to meet you, Matt. Thank you so much. And our regards to everyone, all billions of you at Slater Gordon. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Right. Back to West London, ladies and gentlemen. And there we are. Let's see if your new fabulous gizmo is working.
Well, I hope it is. If it isn't, I'll swap back to the old system.
No, it seems to be good.
Is that all right?
Perfect.
Chantal, hi. If you're going to give us some recommendations today, can I quickly tell you about the show I saw last night? Because I know you.
Oh, yes, do.
I saw The Story of Frank Carson, and it's by a chap called Mike McCabe. Okay.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I used to work with his daughter-in-law, Leslie, at Radio Jackie, when she filled in for Nikki. But the way he did Frank Carson was perfect. He knew him. He worked with him. And it was so poignantly done because he was sitting there in a care home, presumably, just talking to a picture of his wife who passed away. And then it would go back to memories. And then suddenly he would stand up out of the chair and do this stand-up. And it was the most immaculately, brilliantly done thing. And at one point, the audience said, at one point he's sort of inviting the audience to heckle, and then I thought, no, if you heckle, that's his act. You can't heckle his act, but his act is to heckle. What? And it was, when you don't know, when a comedian tells a really good story, as they do, and you don't know how much of it is true.
Yeah.
It was poignant. It was extraordinary. It was brilliant. He's doing a tour. I really recommend it.
Fascinating.
I once a million years ago went to see, with the two Frank Carson stories very, very quickly. I went to see the Generation Game being filmed back when Brucey was doing it, and Frank was on the show, right? And he wouldn't go away. And Bruce Forsyth was getting more and more. And Frank just stood, he did his shtick. Audience adored him. It was hilarious. And then he went to the wings. He should have gone to the green room and back to his dressing room. And Bruce was getting more. Frank, just stop it, dear. Stop it. And he was getting really, really annoyed.
Don't tell me he appeared on the conveyor belt at the end. That would be so funny.
Hello. And then one day, Tarrant told me the most hilarious they were doing a show together, Chris Tarrant and Frank Carson. Double trouble, if ever there was.
Quite.
And so after the show, and Frank Carson's killed it, of course, as he always did. He goes to the bar and he's just entertaining everybody at the bar, and everybody's loving it. And he's the last person to leave the bar. And it so happened that Tarrant had the next room adjoining Frank Carson's in this hotel, wherever they were. And over breakfast, he said, Frank, I could hear you talking the whole night. Who the hell were you talking to? He said, nobody. I was just talking to myself. He did his routine to himself right through the night.
Extraordinary.
Absolutely true. Before we get on to your fabulous choices, thank you. Outer Range, Josh Brolin. Wow. On Amazon, TV series. It's a modern Western. It's sci-fi. It's freaky. It's spooky. It's really unnerving, and it's great. Outer Range.
Right. Modern Western sci-fi.
It's very, don't think Cowboys and Aliens. It's not that. It's much more very mysterious. I have no idea.
What's it called again, Russ?
Outer, Outer, Range.
Okay.
It's set on a big Wyoming.
This is where I get my pen.
It's on my list for this week. I haven't seen it yet, but it is on my list.
Really.
And Josh Brolin is great. Love Josh Brolin.
He's fantastic. He's got such a presence, doesn't he?
Yeah. Terrific. Wow. Good. Well, thank you for the recommendation.
Well, okay.
Now let's be in a position to thank you for yours. What have you got for us, Chantal?
Well, so I've got a bit of a mixed bag this week, but I have caught up. I've only watched the first 1.5 episodes, but I'm absolutely loving it. It's a new drama on ITV with a very odd title, which is The Thief, His Wife, and the Canoe. And the title alone just drags me into Eddie Marsan, exactly, our lovely friend Eddie Marsan. I just thought, what's this all about? It's a true life drama in which a massive fraud is instigated. I'm going to tell you briefly what happens in the first episode, not to put you off, but to whet your appetite. But basically, a rather ordinary couple from Cleveland, prison officer and his rather sort of slightly dopey wife, they are in debt to the tune of £64,000. And he decides and persuades his wife, and there's quite a lot about whether she was coerced into this crazy idea. He then pretends to fake his own death. He goes off in a canoe. He makes sure he's planned it absolutely meticulously. He makes sure that he takes the canoe out of the front door as the neighbor is coming in to the next door house so that he can attest to the fact that the man went off in a canoe. The weather conditions are appropriate for a canoe potentially having been lost at sea. Anyway, he is declared dead. And the wife doesn't tell the two sons that the father is still alive. And in fact, not only is he still alive, he becomes the lodger in the flat next door.
No.
And that carries on for 5 years. Now, I'm not going to tell you anymore because it's just too exciting. I've read up on the whole story. There is so much to read up on. It doesn't finish in Seton Carew in Cleveland. I can tell you that part of the story ends up in Panama City, which is quite a long way from Cleveland. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's actually incredibly good. It's
probably
very well
in Wandsworth or Pentonville, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, I'm not telling you that bit. That's
come on, Chantal.
No, absolutely not.
No, actually, no, you're right. Don't.
Now, you know who's behind all of this is the wonderful Chris Lang from Unforgotten. Chris Lang, Unforgotten. And to my stunned amazement, on most days, Eddie Marson, Chris Lang and I tweet to each other, which absolutely, I never thought they'd reply. Why would they bother to reply to me? And they're so nice. The pair of them are such decent human beings. I've never met either of them. I'm in awe of their talent. Eddie Marson as an actor, Chris Lang as a genius writer. If I could write a 50th as good as that, I'd die happy. And you know, I'm a big fanboy of them both, and they're so charming, which is lovely to know.
But it's a sort of interesting story in many ways, because you just wonder how people end up in a place where they've made really poor decisions over a very long period of time and then continue to make poor decisions and get themselves into such a blithering mess. And clearly this couple were on the edge of a crisis, and the husband had been overspending for a very long time. And you think, yeah, you know, he knew that he was overspending. He couldn't pay the gas bill, but went out and bought a Range Rover. And you just think,
oh my God,
chaotic behavior, utterly chaotic behavior. And people do get themselves into a terrible mess. And it's very interesting to see, you know, partly at the end, there is the question mark about whether the wife was coerced. And that is really quite interesting about the dynamic between the couple, in fact, because he does suggest to her, and one presumes that this was real, that he is going to commit suicide if she doesn't follow through with this idea.
Oh, nice.
And clearly, if you're in that position and you have been coerced to that extent, it's a tricky one. I mean, I think most people would go on with the blag, if you like, on that basis.
Chantal, the part that upset me the most and infuriated me was not to tell the kids they're in mourning.
I know.
And the guy's alive.
Absolutely astonishing.
How you can do that to your own children is beyond belief. Another quick recommendation coming in. I'll just read it very, very quickly for everybody in Deluxe Radio. Great Western series, That Dirty Black Bag. It's on AMC in the States, Canada, Australia, waiting for UK. Starring Patterson Joseph, I don't know who that is, as a proper baddie. Boom. Okay.
I don't know it. I haven't seen it on air over here. So, but I will check it. And it's called That Dirty Black Bag. Great title. Crazy. Okay. Right.
And next.
Thank you. I've written it down. Okay, so something else. So BritBox, which I've mentioned a few times, and you can try it out, I think, free for at least a week. And there's some great stuff on BritBox. Clearly, it's the place, it's the receptacle, if you like, for all the old ITV archive and all the old BBC archive. Great. But along with, you know, a lot of these channels have old stuff to promote. It's very difficult to promote and repeat. So what they do is they make a limited number of original series, so they've got stuff to talk about in the press. And actually, this, I think, is lovely. It's a really nice 3-parter, directed and written by Hugh Laurie, who, you know, everybody's favourite person.
He's a wonderful
binge watched it. Fabulous.
Love Hugh Laurie.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's an Agatha Christie that I didn't know at all, called Why Didn't They Ask Evans? There's no sign of Hercule Poirot, which, you know, I'm sort of happy about that, because that Poirot for me feels a bit like a sort of, not a comedy character, but so unreal as to be ridiculous. Anyway, so this is a great story. Will Poulter, young
this
London
is
actor.
My angry face, Chantal Rickards OBE.
Why is it your angry face?
You're insulting Hercule Poirot.
No, I don't know.
I'm obsessed with Poirot. Let me show you how obsessed I am. Hold on.
Okay. It's a bit sort of panto for me, Poirot.
This is This is my reading glasses case.
Okay.
And what does it say?
Where's your moustache?
What does it say on my reading glasses case?
Oh, it says Hercule Poirot.
And look, on the inside of my reading glasses case, this is how obsessed I am. Look,
oh dear.
Look, it says, I don't know if you can read that.
I can't.
There are
one of me. Two people rarely see the same thing.
Hercule Poirot. That's my reading glasses.
Which is very
That's
true.
how much I love Poirot.
Okay. All right. Well, I won't diss Poirot. But it's a great Agatha Christie. I think it comes from something crazy, like 1934. This was written.
Oh, it's a very old. It's a very old book. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it called? Why didn't they ask?
Why didn't they ask Evans?
Which are the dying words of a man who falls off a cliff in Wales. That's how it starts. And he is found by a caddie who has been working on the golf course with the for the doctor who's having a round of golf, and he rushes down the hillside, gets to the beach, and the man is dying, and he says, "Why didn't they ask Evans?" And then promptly picks it. And so the young man who becomes the hero of the piece, who becomes the amateur
chap,
detective,
isn't he? Very, very handsome fellow.
Very handsome fellow.
Yeah, you said that with a certain cougarish intent, I noticed.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, he teams up with the lovely local Lady Frances, and the two of them become the amateur detectives.
Actress she is as well.
Yeah, Lucy Boynton, fantastic actress. So Will Poulter and Lucy Boynton are the two leads. But actually, it's got a fantastic cast, as you would expect from something that's been put together by Hugh Laurie, who's got like the best friends ever. So it's got Emma Thompson in, it's got Jim Broadbent in.
Do you know why Jim Broadbent's in it? Do you know why?
No.
Because Stephen Fry let him down like just before shooting the scene.
Oh, really? Now that I didn't know. Okay.
And I'll tell you something very interesting about this show. I absolutely loved it, and thank you for bringing it. It's called Why Didn't They Ask Evans on Britpop?
Yeah,
I binge watched it all in one night, and I loved every second. Hugh Laurie said to my pal, who I meet every Saturday morning, as you know, it was the most difficult thing and the worst thing he'd ever had to do because...
Really?
Because, and I'll tell you why. No, he loved the end result, but he never reads reviews. But everyone was saying, "Here, it's a hit. It's fabulous." He never reads reviews. And this is really interesting. And you are right in the center of this. Amazon and Netflix, have taken all the crews, and all the equipment. So Hugh Laurie comes along to try and make this great. He's been obsessed with this since childhood, by the way, this particular book, Why Didn't They Ask Evans? You can't get a crew. So you're left with very, very young, inexperienced crews or people who should have been or have been retired for years. That's your choice. Everybody else has been booked by Netflix or Amazon. It gets worse because you can't get the equipment. You can't get the lighting. You can't get the sound. Netflix and Amazon book and block book everything, and when they're not using it, they leave it in a trailer, like in a container. Hugh Laurie was just like, they were desperate, so they couldn't get the stuff. They couldn't even get the costumes. They had to bring the costumes in, I think, from Belgium. They couldn't even find costumes. That's the influence of Amazon and Netflix on the entertainment industry. And eventually some of the crew went off and they saw the trailer. And they asked the guys, they said, it was Netflix then. They said, "Are you using this lighting?" And they went, "No, it's been in the trailer for a month." They said, "Well, we're going to take it." And they went, "Okay." And they did. It's absolutely true. It's amazing what you have to do. The end result that Hugh Laurie has pulled off is fabulous.
Amazing.
But that's the state of the film industry. It's quite extraordinary.
Goodness me.
Okay.
Who'd have thunk it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it?
Well, good to know. Okay, so that's one for the weekend, or it's 3 hours.
Beautiful,
absolutely perfect time to
sounds
slog on the sofa. And it's beautifully filmed, actually. It's filmed actually in Wales and in Hampshire, I think. And it looks gorgeous. The dresses are gorgeous. The cars are wonderful. It's really nice. It's really worth watching.
The whole thing is he's done it with such love and affection.
Yeah.
And because I'm an Agatha Christie nut, when people come along and make it into a modern kind of horror psychodrama, I get it. You want to drag it into 2022, but some things should be left preserved in aspic.
Yeah.
And he's done a wonderful job.
No, it's good.
Bravo.
So now I'm going to take you to France and then I'm going to bring you back again. We have talked on the show before about a French TV series, which was originally titled 10%, which when we watched it here in England on Amazon became Call My Agent. 10% is 10%, which they think is the fee that goes to an agent. I'm led to believe it's quite a lot more than 10%.
I wish.
But that has now gone full circle, and Amazon have commissioned a series to be made in England by John Morton, who wrote 2020 and W1A. And the basic premise, for those that don't know about Call My Agent, it is about an agency, this time based in London, that represents actors and writers. And it's a satire. I mean, I think the satire could have been built up a little better, but real actors come in and play themselves, as well as actors who don't play themselves. They play the characters who work in the agency. It's slightly chaotic, but once you've got the basic premise, you then just go with the flow. So, lovely piece from Helena Bonham Carter in the first episode. And you think, God, it's great just to see her doing something sort of, light and fun. As I said, satire could have been a little bit more sort of in your face because you want the characters to take the mickey out of themselves even more. But underneath it all, there's quite a sort of soapy good drama about a bit of skullduggery, who's doing what, people not quite being the people that they seem. Are the actors really nice, or are they just a pain in the you-know-what? But it's fun. It's played really for laughs, and some wonderful characters who come in and out. But basically, the first episode is set up. There's a grand old guy who's set up the agency and run it for years, and by the end of the first episode he's dead, and then the whole thing goes mental. It's really nicely done. It's worth watching. It's 8 hours, 8 episodes in series 1. If they follow the French version, there are, I think, at least 4 series that have been made in France. I mean, in some ways the French one is so brilliant, you sort of wonder why the Brits have done exactly the same thing and replicated it. It feels in some ways, not entirely necessary to have made it, because I really enjoyed it in the French version. But anyway, so you've now got 2 versions. You've got a French version, you've got an English version, and take your pick, basically.
Probably get better service with the English version. The French version would just ignore you when you're going, excuse me, sorry, I'm so sorry to bother you. Could I just have a glass of water?
Oh God! Indeed,
completely ridiculous. I'm sorry. Right, we have
time for one more. Very quick one.
3 minutes. Our time is your time.
Right, it's a documentary, and it's called White Hot: The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch. Now, I don't expect you guys to necessarily
watching this.
No. Yeah, I've watched a lot of commentary on this.
I have to say, Abercrombie and Fitch is an American brand, not aimed at us. It was aimed originally at 18 to 22-year-olds, so we shouldn't have been in there.
I think you're looking at who it's aimed for, Chantal.
Well, maybe. I have to say, I did used to go into it because I've now got 2 sons who are in their late 20s. And about 10 years ago, they were always saying, "Oh, Mum, can I have something?"
That's not why you went in, you fibber. You went in because there were fit blokes with their shirts off.
Well, this is part of the story. The fact that it says the rise and fall of Abercrombie and Fitch, you realise that something went badly wrong. And basically, they got the brand wrong. Yeah. The brand ended up looking like a sort of white supremacist brand. You could only be part of the team if you were white and physically fabulous.
It was also very homoerotic. It was also criticised with the catalogues. The catalogues were deeply criticised for being homoerotic.
It was a mess, actually, and they didn't see that they were walking into something that was going to be perceived as that everything about it was wrong. And in fact, it was making me think about the United Colours of Benetton, which started in the 1980s, which was a brand that absolutely said, we're all about colour, we're all about people from all over the world being together. And this was the antithesis of that. And it had a rather sort of cult-like leader, very charismatic, bordering on messianic leader, who was a CEO who came in 92 and revolutionized it. but it all went horribly wrong. It's a great story. It's really interesting. It's very
Did
well
they go
made
bust?
documentary.
Did they?
And
Did
it's
they
on
go
Netflix.
bust?
No, it didn't go bust. But have a look. It's a 90-minute special on Netflix, and it's worth watching.
Yeah, I
And it's
started
called
watching it. You're
White
right,
Hot.
Chantal. It's very, very compelling.
Yes, fascinating. Tells you so much about business and culture all at the same time.
I remember the Benetton thing. That's what sort of opened my mind, I suppose, back in the 80s to diversity, seeing that. You know, before I understood really,
but it was
really
nicely,
what it was. You know what I mean?
It was nicely done. It didn't shove it in your face and didn't lecture you. It just
no,
gave
exactly,
you
Russ. Yeah,
the option, and you thought, well, that's very nice. And on that upbeat note, that's it for this week. Thanks everybody for your fabulous comments from all
Happy bank holiday,
over the
everybody.
world.
Chantal, lovely to see you.
Yeah, nice seeing you guys.
I'm
Happy
ready for the next
weekend.
series, and have a lovely, lovely long weekend. Bye, everybody, and thanks a lot. Bye.